Welcome to Solway mushrooms. Thanks for stopping by. Today I'm going to teach you an oyster bucket tech. First up, we're going to mark some crosses on our bucket and we're going to drill these crosses. I'm using a 6mm drill bit. You can use 6 to 8mm. I wouldn't do anything bigger than that really. The mycelium doesn't need it. The mushrooms will push out through these holes. So 8 holes in the bucket will allow you to get some nice clusters of oyster mushrooms growing out, and it will also allow you to keep the humidity levels up in the bucket. If you do loads and loads of holes, you might find that the bucket dries out, especially if you're going to fruit this inside your house. Once you've drilled your bucket, you want to get it cleaned. So I've taken it into the bath here. If you can do this in the bath or the shower, it's probably the best place to do it. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to spray some 20% bleach solution that I've just made myself. You don't need to buy any fancy cleaners or anything like that. If you've got any bleach in the cupboard, you can mix this up yourself. And I'm going to spray all over the bucket, into every nook and cranny, and I'm going to give it a wipe down with a rag I've got as well. I'm not too fussed about it drying fast, otherwise I'd use isopropyl alcohol, and I'm really just trying to kill any unwanted bacteria or anything like that that might cause future contamination issues when we come to put our straw substrate into the bucket. We'll be giving it another clean immediately before we put the substrate in. And we will use isopropyl alcohol for that, 70% iso. Now that we've given that a good clean, we're going to start to prep our substrate. For a substrate, you want to go to your pet shop and you want to pick up a straw bale that's suitable for pet bedding. We're going to take this substrate and we're going to chop it into smaller pieces that are more easily compressed. And what that'll allow us to do is it'll allow us to push it down and let it submerge under the hot water, which will allow it to pasteurise correctly. You'll need a bucket that's large enough to hold all your straw, and you're going to need to cover that straw in hot water fresh off the boil. You might need to do this in batches, depending on how much substrate you've got. This big brewing tub took 12.5 litres of hot water. So you might be asking yourself, do I not need to sterilise this substrate? And no, you don't. Straw's quite low in nutrition as opposed to other substrates like master's mix. If you're going to grow oysters on master's mix, out of a fruiting bag for example, you would definitely need to sterilise it. For pasteurisation to work, we need to keep the bucket nice and warm. That's why you can see me here wrapping towels around it. You really want to keep it nice and snug so that the heat stays for a long time. So once your substrate is pasteurised overnight, you want to go back to the bathroom and we're going to clean our bucket again. So you can see me putting some gloves on here, just to minimise anything that I'm going to introduce into the bucket that might be under my fingernails or anything. We're going to open our bucket up and we're going to spray isopropyl alcohol 70% into it. The reason we use 70% is it stays on surfaces long enough to kill anything, and it evaporates pretty quickly as well. You don't want anything above 70% because it doesn't actually stay on the surface long enough to kill anything. Oysters are very contamination resistant, very hardy and very aggressive colonisers, so they won't really give contamination a foothold in terms of time to colonise the substrate. So once the bucket's all clean, we're going to start moving on to filling our bucket with substrate and grain spawn. This is some grain spawn here. The one that I've got in my hand now is fully colonised. You can see the mycelium growing all the way through it. And the one to the right is the same strain, the same oyster mycelium, but it's just been broken up and shaken about. And basically that breaks everything up and it allows for loads of points of inoculation. This means that the mycelium will spread through the substrate faster rather than being in a big clump. So when it comes to filling our bucket that we've drilled, we're going to do it in layers, almost like a lasagna. We're going to have some straw at the bottom, as you can see there, and I'm going to sprinkle in some grain spawn here. Each time we introduce new straw or a new straw layer, we're going to squeeze it out really hard between our fingers so that there's only 1 or 2 drops of water coming out of the straw. We don't want to saturate the bucket. This will provide an unfavourable condition for the mycelium. If you get any clumps of grain, just squeeze them out, just separate them with your fingers. This way you'll ensure that you've got the maximum points of inoculation that you can have. So we'll continue this pattern of substrate, spawn, substrate. We'll keep going until we've got a full bucket. Just one point to note is you want to push it down. You want to push the substrate and spawn mix down in the bucket. By compacting it down, we're getting more substrate in the bucket, so we're going to get more mushrooms at the end of the day. More substrates, more food. For this bucket, I used 2 jars of grain spawn. That's 800 grams of grain spawn, so it's not really that much. Needless to say, smaller tubs, like if you're doing it in a peanut butter tub or something like that, it'll take far less grain spawn. One thing that I wish I'd done here was I wish I'd pasteurised far more straw than I actually did. If you watch this clip right till the end, you'll see that it's a couple of inches shy, which I'm not too happy about. I'm still going to get plenty of oysters, they're going to taste great, but it's a learning curve at the end of the day. So we're now at the stage of finishing off our layering of our substrate, and we're just about to close this tub up. Once it's all closed up, we're going to take it somewhere nice and warm, and we're going to put it somewhere that's going to allow the perfect conditions for colonisation. Okay, final step, we're going to put our bucket on a towel, and we're going to wrap it up and keep it dark. You want to check this bucket in 2 weeks' time, have a look through the holes that we drilled for the fruits to come out, and you should see that the straw's turned white with mycelium. If it hasn't, give it a couple of days extra. There will be a follow-up video to this, in which I'll show you how to put the bucket into fruiting conditions. And I'll also be showing images of the fully colonised bucket as well, just so that you know you're heading in the right direction with your bucket tech. Thank you very much for watching. If you liked it, give us a like and subscribe. If you've got any questions about anything, feel free to drop us a comment below or reach out on Facebook or Instagram, and I'd love to help you.